Hooray! Let's take us out and let my hair down. Is that okay? Can I do that? It's kind of messy, is it? Is that alright? I like to wear my hair down sometimes. Okay, so anyway, I was talking about Stephen C. Johnson, and can I tell you with that is I met the son of a gun down in Nashville, Tennessee at the Commodore. He appeared to be very, very kind, very nice, and he invited me later on after I was at my sister's and stuff in London, Pennsylvania in 2010 to his house. While I was at his house, he seemed to be nice, but I'll tell you what, the conversations of him mentioning about my voice, gossiping to other people because I was a transsexual female, and because of him questioning me whether this girl's a transsexual, is this girl, can I tell if this girl's a transsexual, and his ridiculous conversations, and the fact that things like very little in this business gets done in contract, and his whole approach of things. In my opinion, I realized that more so than not, this is not somebody I want to deal with in life in general. So I left. When I made the recordings, my recordings of the songs that I wrote, I realized that even in the studio that we were in with the other musicians, my recordings are superior. So can I tell you from my own experience, you can go your whole life wanting other people to help you record music, to co-write music. I wanted to co-write with other people. I had a couple experiences. Happy started off being co-write with my friend Joseph Binner from Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and then I ended up switching back to the way the song was actually written. So, in other words, I wrote the song, I got together with my friend at Lebanon Village, 147 Lebanon Village, in my bedroom. We sat on my bed, and he actually added a second verse to it, meaning I wrote the song, and then he decided, or through our co-write, we agreed that he would write a second verse to it. So it would be more in alignment with his way of thinking of the picture that we were trying to create in the song. Nevertheless, we did it that day, and then after a season of time, I went back to Happy, which ended up being what it is in the long run today, meaning over a course of many years. I ended up going back to the original way I wrote this song, and I kept playing with it. And I often wish that we would have been able to actually complete the song in a co-write, but we never did. So I just continued on with the song the original way it was written, and then I ended up rewriting it anyway here in 2010. Now, with that being said, the only other time that I co-wrote was a song that I think might be on this album or the next album. Not sure yet. Or the album after that. In the next 3 albums it will be on. For sure. It's one of my Project 50s song. I have a project. I call it my 50 song project. And this song is going to be on. And basically I was down in Nashville outside of the Commodore. And I met a really nice gentleman who was a really good songwriter. And I introduced to him this song that I was working on, and can I tell you that it wasn't him, it was more me. It was like when I write my songs, they're very personalized, and when others, if it's not like a best friend or a lover, or like a partner or somebody very, very close to you, it seems like with me, in all honesty, it's not as comfortable for me to sing over and over and over again. It has to be more personalized. And I learned this with music videos as well coming up, and I'll share that with you. But so I ended up, there was only 2 songs I ever co-wrote with anybody. With that being said, I did talk with other like producers and things like that, and we bounce ideas. We talk about putting a bridge and stuff, and I usually end up writing for that. And that's, like, for instance, I've taken a song to like Andy, and Andy, who my producer was years ago, would mention to me about, did you ever think about possibly putting a bridge in the song? And then we would discuss a little bit, and then I would go home and write it, put the bridge in it. So I took like hints of or suggestions of doing different things with the songs, and that's what I did. With a couple with him, because that's why I was hoping to work with a producer at some time. Unfortunately, when you get down to it, I realized in the end, instead of all those painful years of wanting to work with other people, wanting to co-write, wanting to produce songs with other people, wanting to get a band together, all that stuff, what I realized in all honesty for me, it was better if I just write the songs, go to my NSAI group and have them critiqued and make minor adjustments, which is pretty much what you do with good friends, in a lot of situations, or I did with the producers. They kind of critique it and give suggestions and then stuff, and then you go ahead and write the song. But most importantly, I realized it is much better when you play, you get it in as a recording artist. You get the key that you need, for your vocals and your ability within your, with your abilities. And you work it out in the recording studio, and you play every instrument within your abilities. And when it comes together with your desire to mix it, to EQ it, to compress it, master it, bring it all together, can I tell you the reward of it is outstanding. There's no words I can put into how fabulous I feel every time I listen to my music. And I know that I did it. And can I tell you, out of all the recordings that I worked with other people, including myself from years ago before the dolls came out on the computer, I used to listen to my recordings with another producer that were fantastic. Okay? If you ever hear my music, only spoken words, or if you ever heard my song Just You and Me or Hugs and Kisses, Born to Be, these recordings from in the mid-2000s, like early 2000s, like 2002 to 2004 or 5, in that era, the thing is the recordings were actually were spectacular. The problem is I had a lot of psychological struggle. I was suffering from major depression. You know what it was? It was because I didn't know my true identity. It was unrecognized to me. I lost myself through the law of attraction and being inspired by others. So I started sounding like them. I started dressing like them, imitating, acting. Humans are imitators. We're all like that. If we're not careful, we can start imitating and sounding like other people. And that leads us down a very painful road once we realize we got too far into it, and something happens inside of us and we realize we lost ourselves, our true selves, along the way. And then you got to kind of let go of everything if it's that important to you, because for me it was near death. I had to do it. And then when you start finding your true identity and coming into yourself, then you start to realize, wow, all that pain and suffering, even when I would listen to those great recordings, they were fabulous. And I would be thinking to myself, they sound great, but why don't I like them? What is it that I don't like? I mean, I really don't like certain things about it, but the songs, as a listener, are absolutely, they're major hits, some of them. Well, there you go. Now I listen to my music, and it isn't about whether or not other people like it. The bottom line is I can listen to my songs on rotation continuously over and over and over again. And can I tell you, if you're a recording artist and you aren't at the point that you can literally put in your song and you could listen to it all day long, there's a chance that you may need to reconsider either re-recording it, rewriting it, maybe putting it in a different key that's more natural to you. Your natural self to yourself is very appealing and attractive, is what I've learned. And it took me years to figure this out. So when I was with this psychopathic person in New York, and we were going through all that we were going through in our conversation, I was listening to his insight on his feelings and perspectives on songwriters with their teeth falling out and that they're crazy. They usually just kill theirself, he said at one time. In my opinion, he was trying to drop those seeds of evilness into my brain the whole time that I was there. So in other words, I do not like this person, Stephen, or care about him at all. It is a person, if you're ever down in Nashville, Tennessee, in my opinion, you do not ever want to do business with. He appears to be extremely nice. If you listen to his conversation and you hear how he laughs and he has a nervous twitch and stuff, you will realize that he comes across as psychopathic-like, and most likely he is very corrupted. And in my opinion, he had also told me that he used to work for Elvis Enterprise. Anybody who knows me, especially in 2009, and just about prior to that, I have a history with Elvis. My Elvis, Red Velvet Elvis art. The article that Henry Homan had given me, I mentioned about the story of my mom was going to see Elvis, one of his last shows, was going to, and unfortunately, supposedly he died. And we heard it advertised on the radio the year that it happened, or when it happened. And just my love and desire for rock and roll in the 50s. Like, I'm very, very passionate about the 50s. Maybe not in a manner, in appearance, like other people who love the 50s, but in my own way, I am obsessed with it. I love rockabillys. I love the way guys dress in the 50s and the outfits and the spirit of, the godly values and everything. With that being said, I was also showing pictures of like the Biltmore Hotel. I reached out to Elvis Enterprise, if that's what it is, with Graceland, and to submit an article. To submit a writing, because I wanted to be on their Graceland website and stuff. And they did post it on, and I ended up reaching out and talking to somebody that was supposedly connected to Elvis Presley, at least at one time, lived or is still living in Las Vegas, this gentleman, and he had replied back, and he had asked me if I thought that Elvis, how do I think, how do I feel, do I believe that Elvis is alive or is he dead? What do I believe? That's what he was asking me. So with that being said, in the event that Elvis would still be alive, or he did fake his death, and maybe he is dead by now, maybe, the truth of the matter is this. With that in combination of meeting supposedly his one and only son, Elvis Jr., out here in Ohio, you will find out that I had a lot of incidences with just the name Elvis. I even had dreams that Elvis was coming for me on his airplane at the airport, and that he came to me in a dream and he told me that he was going to help me. Meaning, I'm assuming, with my predicament that I was in my life, with transitioning, doing my music, if you will, I was in a great deal of stress and pain. I'm convinced that these people, like Stephen, have access via satellite, and they were playing with my mind and invading my privacy. Okay? Basically, the whole time I've been out here in Ohio. I'm convinced that while I was doing this, I collapsed on the floor doing "Let Your Love Flood Through My Soul" after I was done. And I heard this exact words in my head. Fuck this shit. And can I tell you something? All of a sudden, I also heard, get up. Meaning get up off the floor. And then I finally got myself in on the bed. And I collapsed. In other words, I was exhausted because I was working my butt off for years on my music. You will find out that I came out here and I was under distress, and I wrote all the songs that I did, like 30 of them in like a 3 or 4 months period of time. And I continued to write, off and on sporadically. In 2011, I got a job at Walmart. It didn't work out. That's when I started feeling the sensation like the universe is connected as one. And then after that, in 2012, I went out to Las Vegas. I had the near-death experience, and I realized that I was being stalked. Okay? By Satanists, in my opinion. When I came here and I started busking, that's when they started coming to me, and they were trying, they'll feed you a little bit of information on a daily basis. If you're consistent and you go busk on a day-to-day basis, every day, certain time, it works better that way, you will find out that people are like messengers, and they come to you with messages to kind of give you the next instruction of whatever it is that they're trying to communicate to you. Okay, this didn't sit easy with me. I didn't appreciate this at all. And I ended up having a lot of anger outburst, screaming outrages in between me playing my music. Even the person I was living with was telling the owner of the house that I was constantly talking to myself. When I came here, or when I was busking, I was learning my songs, arranging them, and getting a feel for the way I want to play them. Not only did I do that, when I was over here in Huber Heights, at the house, I made recordings in the studio, my Nebraska recordings. That's when I realized, too, that people in the music industry, like I was talking, for instance, about I loved Chris Christopherson's Why Me, Lord? And the next thing you know, I would see Travis Tritt singing, right, that week, singing Why Me, Lord. If I was in the studio and I was talking about certain people, like rappers, like Eminem, or Snoop Lion, if you will. It wasn't soon after, for instance, with Snoop Lion, is it? Or is it Snoop Dogg? When it wasn't long after with Snoop Dogg, when I made a video, for instance, with the poop of my poop in the toilet, it was shaped like a lion's head. So I took a picture of my poop in the toilet at Huber Heights, shaped like a lion's head. There was 2 lions' heads. And it was shortly after that within that week, that I realized on my Facebook scrolling down, whether this was real or not, I seen that Snoop Dogg had some kind of revelation or revolution with a spiritual advisor, and now he was going to be Snoop Lion, okay? I was noticing that when I was going through my things that I was going through in my own privacy of my home, that I would go onto social networks, for instance, on Facebook, and I would realize that whatever I was talking about in my studio, things were starting to pick up on my social network on Facebook. When I would scroll down, it started to become very overwhelming, okay? I realized like people like Miley Cyrus and stuff were starting to use similar things like with what I was doing. And what I believe, I'll tell you what I believe if there's somebody who's like, especially in the recording arts, or acting or anything like that, political, I believe that they use them as a resource, the industry. They have people like Steven invading the privacy, and whatever you're saying, whatever you're doing, whatever private projects you're working on, especially if you are perceived as being somebody who might be influential on your own by the way you dress, your look, your appearance, your music, or if you're an actress, an artist of any kind, they will use you as a resource, and they will feed that off to various people within what they call mainstream industry, which would be people like those of the names that I've been talking about. With that being said, I also related this back to a Jim Femino conversation that I had when I was with Brittany Fox, Dizzy Dean, the lead singer of the old Brittany Fox. When Jim told me, who is also, ironically, he's good friends with Toby Keith. And Toby Keith is good friends with Willie Nelson. And Willie Nelson's Luck Films, some of the people from that company, production company, were in the household with me while I was visiting Steven, who I met in Nashville. Are you getting where I'm coming from? They're all connected. These people that I'm talking about are connected. In my opinion, when Jim told me back in like 2005 or 6, simply, it might have been 2004, it was in the 2000s, he told me that 1 every 10 years comes along. And can I tell you, I related that back to a lot of what I was going through, little things of different people, including my producer that I had in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Andy. A lot of the things that they were talking about seem to be appearing to be more of an understood of what is happening to me. I am being used as a resource by people in mainstream industry. They use independent recording artists, people in general. They invade their privacy. I believe that many of them have access to watching me and other people via satellite, and they use them by observation for their writings, for whatever conversations they might be engaging in. They look for different signs of uniqueness of things that maybe they never used before when they're going out to talk on interviews, like on television and stuff. Little things that you bring up, like in your conversation to yourself, if you're speaking out loud, or to other people. Little slang words, little incidences that happened when you were younger, it'll start to come out. What I also started to realize is the things of all the bands and movies and actors and actresses and stuff that I loved a lot as a kid growing up, all of a sudden it's kind of like they're making a comeback. They call this like a 20-year flow over, if you will, in a cycle, the 20-year cycle. In other words, every 20 years, they kind of go back. Like now, they go back about 20 years to where like music trends and movie trends and different trends back 20 years ago, they kind of start to blend more of the most popular of them in with today for various reasons. So whatever they do, they do. But this is what I'm witnessing, and I'm acknowledging everything that I'm talking about when I'm in the privacy of my studio is starting to somehow seem to mysteriously pop up on my Facebook page. Things that you know darn well, or I know darn well, would never have been in existence if I were not talking about. For instance, I will tell you that anybody who knows me knows, all the way back to my Andrew producer days, was that I, love big band sounds. And there are big band sounds out there like Brian Setzler and like the orchestra and a few other things. But know this, I really emphasized, even when I talked to Stephen, the enthusiasm and excitement, and of course in my song, I Want to Get Lost Back in the 50s, old time rock and roll, and the fact that I was a 50s kind of person, I realized that this big band sound and stuff that I was hoping to start to produce, that's what I was trying to get people together for at one point as a songwriter, was to get big band together to do live musical presentations. And I realized that all of a sudden people like even Dee Snider, Twisted Sister, which is something I mentioned in my videos as well. If you listen to my videos of me sharing my life story, you will hear me talking about various artists that all of a sudden now they just started to become more magnified in mainstream, on television, and on the radio and stuff like that. And this is what started to switch over my aggressiveness of anger, is I started to realize that I'm being used as a resource. And my privacy is being invaded, and I gotta be honest, I don't know if it's a whole lot of people in the entertainment industry and abroad, or if it's only somebody who's pretending that it's, that it's a whole lot of people watching me. But I do know that a lot of this stuff, that whatever I'm talking about in the privacy of my home and all the works that I'm doing, I know that they are being utilized, like song titles and stuff, into the lives of other writers and people in the political and entertainment industry. Okay, so I don't know if that's necessarily clear. What I've done is I made something on my website to kind of show you. For instance, when I was over at the house at Huber Heights and I had a sermon with myself, by myself, in the kitchen, and I mentioned about opening up your heart and God providing a starter kit in your heart. How beautiful it would be to see what's in the hearts of other people, the reality, the truth as to what they really want to do with their life. With that being said, it was shortly after that I went up on my Facebook page that night or thereafter, and I seen Bon Jovi with a sword in it. Okay, the heart with a sword in it, and I guess wings on it, if you will. I also noticed that my ragtop car that I got at, or my Cadillac car I got at, while working at Walmart in 2011, that Bon Jovi, evidently, I don't know if it was a real stage or if it was a photo that was just made up with a big blue car on it. I also read some of the lyrics, not all of them, but I read some of the lyrics, and it appeared to me that Bon Jovi somehow had access either to lyrics of my songs, and he was kind of responding to them, or he also had access to invading my privacy. With that being said, this stuff, as it magnified and it continued on, really upset me. And that's why I respond the way I do. Because I started off on the right foot by sharing my life story. When I did, that's when I started realizing that everything that I was starting to do, they call it, it's already being done. Meaning, because I talk in the privacy of my home, because I've been being observed for years, while I'm writing my music, while I'm living my life, while I'm an escort, etc., etc., that when I finally stepped out in 2012 to start doing things like busking, just simply busking and sharing my life story in 2013, that's when I started realizing that people were watching me closer than I care for, and that they were communicating to me, and this was leading back to Stephen. I tie it back as somebody like Stephen who is more or less a distraction. And I'll tell you why, is because I heard when I was on the road as an escort, when I was in Delaware, to be mindful of a person by the name of John in New Jersey. When I was in New Jersey, I started to put things together by direction of what people were sharing with me while I was an escort, that it sounded like there was a possibility that a Satanist by the name of John in New Jersey was watching me a lot closer than I care it to be. Once I started realizing things, I started wondering how sick and demented recording artists in the music industry really are, and the fact that they target other singers, songwriters, specifically songwriters and recording artists, as a satanic sacrifice for whatever reason, and whatever kind of sacrifice. Like I went through and I explained about the bloodbath I received when I was up in Rhode Island, and that I've been having a sensation of being stalked. And the funny thing is I was also invited through people, meaning they told me you ought to go to John Bon Jovi's house when I was in New Jersey. For anybody who knows me knows that I stopped, or it took me a while, but I tried to stop listening to Bon Jovi by the time I was in my 20s. I didn't want anything to do with it for various reasons. I realized then later on that it was probably best for my mental health just not to listen to anybody's music after years, especially if it torments you and it brings you down, okay? I used to have a problem with listening to glam bands' music, people's, in general, that sang power ballads, and I would meditate on that stuff, and I became very suicidal. And in a lot of situations, I believe that there's possibilities it could have wrecked my life, okay? I don't want to get too heavy about that right now, but the truth of the matter is, when I came out here and I was busking, I also met Bon Jovi face-to-face at Fountain Square. Now, I don't want to ramble on too much about one person. I don't want to be here today rambling on about Bon Jovi, but I know I also gave, I met Bret Michaels and I gave him one of my promotional CDs. In other words, I found out that he had a record company, supposedly in Arizona, and I thought, what? The same words that I'm going to say to anybody else is, I thought that he might be interested in working with me, helping me, if you will. Okay, maybe wrong choice of words. That's just the way that I talk, you know. I want to do more musically. I hear you have a record company. I'm giving you a CD. I explained who I was. He supposedly already knew who I was, and etc., etc. Now, can I tell you that when I was here at the Oregon District, a guy walked up to me and he said, "We don't help people who don't help themselves." I'm piecing all this stuff together throughout my life because I'm realizing that at least since I met Jim and Dizzy Dean, when I was outside of Philadelphia, and Andy, who also had given me a demo of Bon Jovi's, like a pre-demo recording, I got to hear it with Andy. The truth of the matter is, I've been noticing that certain names in the industry have been popping up to me as I was going through my life. I was trying to get away from the music industry because I really believed that I was being led into a rock and roll ministry for use. That was my hope. At least that's what I felt was really true on my heart, and I felt like God was leading me to this. Nevertheless, all this stuff happened, and here I was in my studio, and I started realizing that even at Huber Heights, that I had a sensation that people were watching me extremely close. I had a sensation of people within the house, like we were having, like I'd be talking about something, I'd come downstairs into the kitchen, and people would start talking about things like they heard me before I came down. Meaning, whatever I said, if I said I ran to the grocery store and got a cup of coffee, then I went downstairs, I would hear people all of a sudden starting to talk about coffee, but why would they be, but this wasn't the subject. I'm just saying they would be talking about coffee as though whatever I talked about prior, when I would come downstairs, it's like my words were being repeated through people, okay? I had sensations like I was being watched continually and listened to. I made other recordings at Huber Heights on Cool Edit When I first came out here, I had a headset with microphone, and I used to plug it in to my laptop that I had at the time, and I would record my songs. So I would write them in document, like Word document, fix them up really good, and then I would record them so I had an audio sound. I still have them, and we'll have to play them for you sometime. But then I also made little demos of myself through Cool Edit. After I was done with Cool Edit doing the Nebraska recordings, and I started realizing an increasingly possibility that people in the music industry are simply, I think in personality, I don't think they're just, or personally, I don't think they're just trying to use me as a resource. I personally think they're into major, major bullying. Why? I do not know why. Okay? And what I mean by that is, if you ever heard of people being stalked online and stuff, don't be surprised if those people being stalked are not being watched closely via satellite. And don't be surprised if it isn't some of these mainstreamers, recording artists and actors and actresses and stuff, as whatever kind of rituals and power that they feel that they receive or gain by doing this to people. Okay? As Roseanne says, when somebody starts to rise up in the music and entertainment industry, people within the industry really do not like that. What she means is the people that you listen to on the radio, the people that you see on television, they don't like it. Why is that? Because they look at it as though a possibility of some kind of threat, in the fact that if this person comes to be like in music, that the general masses are going to start to really, you're set a new standard, a new way, and people will be drawn to you and your music, in this situation with music. Or if you're an actor and actress and there's something about you that is very magnetic, okay, then all the attention, a majority of the attention from the masses are going to be on you. For instance, how many people love Patrick Swayze or did love Patrick Swayze in the world? A lot of people did when he came along. A lot of people did. A lot of people love people like Michael J. Fox, for instance. When new up-and-coming artists of any kind or actors and actresses come along, it's kind of like a threat on the occupation of other actors and actresses and recording artists. And in my opinion, you might be surprised how a lot of the recording artists end up disappearing and why. For instance, did you ever wonder if La Bamba and the people who passed away in the train or in the airplane, do you really think that they went down in an airplane exactly the way that they told you? Or if there was ever a bus accident or a killing like with Kurt Cobain, do you believe that he even killed himself? Do you believe he's dead? Do you believe other people killed him and just pretended that he killed himself? I mean, think about how much of an impact some of these people were in the music industry. And the one thing is, I can guarantee you, is the fruits of the spirit of Satan would be more of the jealous, more bitter, and a whole lot of other disgusting things. When people see that somebody, especially with a good heart, is coming up and they have talent, whether it be songwriter, I stick with songwriting because that's something that I do. Notice I've been turned down many times, over and over and over and over again. Why is that? I often wondered that, and I went through a lot of psychological struggle, and then I realized when you start trying to maneuver into going into the field of mainstream, whatever it is, these people are very protective within their little family, is what they call it, okay? They have a family, they're very tight, and let me tell you something, they do not want to include who they do not want to include. They don't want to find out that Tracilyn is all of a sudden, her music is being on the radio and it's going worldwide distributed, and now people are getting ecstatic because they just found out Tracilyn is playing arenas and stadiums and all that other stuff. People are constantly fighting to be what they call at the top. Tracilyn is not like that. In fact, I really came out here in Ohio and I wanted to do something totally different because I realized I don't know what's going on in the music business. I should have got signed to a major deal a long time ago. I'm trying to stay away from that, and now I want to just simply be a worship leader at a local church or something. Not anymore, but I did then until I ran into all these hard times, and it navigated me into what I now want to really do, and I'm there and I'm focused on it. With this being said, I don't want to ramble on about this stuff, but can I tell you, it really freaked me out to learn that people were, in my opinion, watching and listening to me very closely. Almost like I have psychopathic behavior going on inside my head. But it's real. And I talk to my psychologist and people at the hospital all the time about it when I go in. I mean, not the hospital anymore, but at the psychologist, my therapist. I talk to her about it all the time. Whether she believes it, whether she doesn't, you know, it's real, in my opinion. I'm going to show you a few more things outside of the Studio One. I'm not going to show you because I would have to open it up right now, and I don't really want to take the time to do that. But if you have any questions about that in the details, leave me know, and I will make a video about it once I start using it again for my next album. I also realized in my Dropbox, I use a Dropbox like this here, Google. You see this Google shortcut? Yep. Right here. Okay, so it's a storage program that you can, you know, for Google, you can get like 10 megabytes or 11 megabytes or gigabytes, I'm sorry, of storage for your files and stuff like that on it. And let me tell you something. There you go. So you have files on it, and it automatically goes for, like here. We're going to open it up. Storage, Google Drive. So you can actually store it online this way. Different files and stuff. Okay, and right here you can get 11 gigabytes. I have 11 gigabytes out of 15 gigabytes used, meaning they give free 15 gigabytes of storage at this time. When you log on with a username, that is like having an account anywhere else on social media. The problem is we don't know who else has access to that account, and they don't need a username to get on it. Also, we don't know who's watching us via satellite and does know your username and password. We also don't know if they can actually take files off of your personal computer and then they have all of your usernames anyway, if that's the way you do it. Or if they're watching you and they're scanning you, if you have it written on paper. I don't know what form you do, but the bottom line is people have access to your accounts. Now, Dropbox is similar to this Google, okay? I did not use Google for various reasons. For my music project, what I would do is I would put my musical files from Studio One and all my song files into this Dropbox, okay? Unlimited. I paid for a yearly membership. Now, here's the thing. That was just in case my computer hard drive would crash. I need a backup plan, okay? I do save all of my stuff many times over. It's very wise to do that. Put it on several hard drives if you can. I say at least 2, but you know, even if it's one other than what you're working with. So that makes 2. So I basically have it on, at that time, it was on 3 different hard drives. That's how I want to be sure, because I put a lot of time and energy in this. With that in studio projects, I mean, it's something you need to really strongly consider. In case your computer would ever crash, you want to make sure that you have a backup plan with that you already saved everything. With this Dropbox, you can actually do that. So the file is actually in the Dropbox. It's in the Dropbox just like these files right here. While you're working on the project, in the event that your computer would crash, it's saved online. Most of it is going to be saved, you know, if not all of it, depending. For the most part, let's just say it's going to be saved. That is good, right? It is good. The problem is Dropbox. I learned over the 2+ years that I was using Dropbox that 3 of my files were missing. Not to mention one of my video files. And I acknowledged that somebody somehow was tampering with my Dropbox. Let Your Love Flood Through My Soul was one of them. Coincidental, considering we made recordings when I was up in Derby, New York, okay? Again, there was never a contract made. I didn't take this guy seriously. He's foolishly talking about an RV that could be mine, you know, I guess in the years to come or whatever. I'm going to have an RV like that someday. I'm going to have a house like that someday. He likes to point things out and tell you what you're going to have. All a crock, okay? Also, if I'm not mistaken, it was Living the Life, okay? Which is really, it was supposed to be a country ballad song, but I think I'm going to rock it up. That was another one that was recorded during the time that I was up in Derby, New York. Meaning, I wrote the song there myself. I wrote it. I even have the original file when I wrote that song. I wrote 2 songs, Living the Life and She Don't Mean a Thing, okay, Heartbreaker. I wrote those 2 songs when I was in Derby, New York. While I was in Derby, New York, Steven, me and that Anthony guy, that Jason Odo, and another guitar player, we got together at a studio outside of Buffalo, New York, and we recorded, my songs, Let Your Love Flood Through My Soul, Ragtop Cadillac, Heartbreaker, and Living the Life. And let me tell you something, in my Dropbox, Living the Life was missing. My file, my Huber Heights file, which was really bizarre. Living the Life was gone. Let Your Love Flood Through My Soul, and also the song that tells a story about meeting Bret Michaels at Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is called, hold on a minute, Left Me in the Cold. Basically, the story talks about meeting Jim in Philadelphia, meeting Bret Michaels in Pottsville. Okay, so now these 3 songs are gone. Living the Life, Let Your Love Flood Through My Soul, and Left in the Cold. Now Dropbox, Mr. and Mrs. Dropbox, or whoever owns it, why were my files, those 3 songs, missing? I did not know. I was under the assumption that maybe somebody within Dropbox or any program like that, somebody might go in, possibly, and browse through them. But I got to be honest, I never thought that they would flat out take something like that. Those 3 songs, very valuable songs, by the way, taking those 3 songs or deleting them. Why would you do that? By any chance, Dropbox, does Stephen C. Johnson have access to people's Dropbox files? Does Bret Michaels by any chance? Or Bon Jovi or anybody else? Is this like a family thing where they created like Dropbox or bought out Dropbox? And there's more people in the music and entertainment industry that have access and actually ownership to the Dropbox or Google Drive or the social media sites like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube? Because it's really weird that somebody at my caliber of abilities as a songwriter, as a human being, being in the entertainment industry for quite a few years, myself, why would I be targeted with things like files missing and view counts on my videos changing? I am not crazy. I know that Steven and his paparazzi, is it Willie Nelson too, would like me to think that I'm crazy, but I'm not. And Willie Nelson, I am not like the father of rock and roll who might have been a targeted individual because he wrote That's All Right Mama. And didn't they pull a Dirty Birdie Elvis Presley enterprise on to the father of rock and roll? I have an interview with him. It might still be online too. Sometimes in order to make iconic recording artists for their agenda, whatever that is, they take whatever they want and they do whatever they want. And if they know that somebody's going through an extremely excruciating, challenging time, they might be suicidal at one point in their life or suffering from major depression or be bipolar or suffer some kind of history in a mental institution or hospital, they know that if this person can, more likely if they write, they're going to be pretty darn good and have something to say, especially if they're in today's society, whatever the main society is going through, like in this situation, LGBTQ rights, transsexualism, okay? The bottom line is if the person, like Tracilyn, writes major hit songs, just because it's not on the radio don't mean it ain't a hit. Major hit songs. Hey, Willie, wouldn't that person possibly be a target by people in the music industry who want something for nothing? Instead of writing out a contract, Willie Nelson, legit giving and making sure that the writer of the song get what belongs to them, like royalties, or a publisher, if one were to make an agreement, get their fair share. See, what happens is there's so much money involved that people don't realize it. See, when I get mad and I say I'm sick of hearing Tim McGraw on the radio 30 years later, I'm sick of hearing Bon Jovi on the radio all these years later. Let me tell you something. Hey, people of America, let's get Bon Jovi's last album and let's get Tracilyn's next album or any one of these and let's lay them side by side and you be honest. I want to know why Bon Jovi is worth more of a paycheck having his songs on the radio than Tracilyn, okay? And I want to know, Willie Nelson, why do you think Steven, who supposedly is probably connected to you directly, Why wouldn't Stephen C. Johnson, Willie Nelson, make a contract for one of the most remarkable songs ever written in rock and roll history about the 50s and the king of rock and roll and all the others involved in it? Ragtop Cadillac. Did you ever hear that song, Willie Nelson? You know what I think? I think when people like you and Stephen C. Johnson get together and the rest of your family, I think you look for people that are easy targets to try to take advantage of. And hey, if Tracilyn would have jumped off the George Washington Bridge, possibly killing herself, maybe it was electronic harassment that was tormenting her and trying to get her to do it because she met Bret Michaels years ago, gave him a CD with major hit songs, sounded even better than him in the male voice. And when people want your songs, but they don't want you involved, they want all the money, they would do whatever they can to rid you from the earth. And then they'll use your songs. Do you think that might be true? Hey, Willie Nelson, Toby Keith, why do you think Stephen C. Johnson never made a contract and contacted Tracilyn and said, hey, I got somebody who's interested in singing your song? Why do you think that is? That happened back in 2010. And it was in 2012 when I realized Stephen C. Johnson and other people have access to invading my privacy. They were sending me messages. What do you think of that, Willie Nelson? Do you believe in that? In the theory of electronic harassment? Did they ever tamper with your thoughts, Willie? The funny thing is, when I was down at the Oregon District, I noticed, Willie Nelson, that they were trying to get me to go play in bar rooms, and I didn't want to do that. They told me I'd be like that Poco guy, that you sang one of his songs. And guess what? I guess evidently I would only sit in an apartment and play my guitar all day and sing because I was crazy. Hey, Willie Nelson, I'm not so crazy. I'm more intelligent than you realize. Maybe some of us were in the music business and we never understood why we never got a fair shake with a publishing deal or a major record company or major distributor worldwide. So we decided that if it's not going to work by now, let's go do something else. Let's make things right in our personal life. So we don't need to be tormented, right? Because we go down to Nashville to sing our songs on the stages, right? I'm just curious because people from Luck Films, is it, or Lucky Films, was up at Stephen's home. Now I feel like I've been getting harassed for quite a few years. Is that what they call the 7-year itch, Willie Nelson? Where they test you to see whether or not first they could get you to kill yourself or go crazy? How much could they take the song from you? Is that what it's all about? Hey, I have over 50 songs, Willie Nelson. That's a lot of money sitting there, isn't it? Especially when utilized by the family for recording artists to sing. They can be in commercials, they can be in movies, they can be in television shows. Think of how many concerts they could be in, karaoke discs. If the American people knew how much money there was to be made at just one concert, is it over $1 million? How much money did anybody ever add up the mathematics of all the tickets sold in an arena show? They call them $1 million concerts, is that it? Let me ask you something. Why should people like Tim McGraw, Toby Keith, and Willie Nelson go through this life and have their songs on the radio? Do we know that this conditions America to think that there's something more special than people like Tracilyn, who had near-death experiences because people are selfish in the music industry and they don't help out? They don't give certain people publishing deals. Right, Stephen C. Johnson? They don't want to make contracts up. Hey, very little gets done on contracts, Stephen says. Guess what Tracilyn says? I'm not doing any business with you after finding out you're invading my privacy. It seems to me that most likely people were interested in Ragtop Cadillac because Stephen told me I used to work for Elvis Enterprise, and it was the way he said it. Was that a deal you made with Elvis Enterprise? That if you can get Ragtop Cadillac from Tracilyn, you'll be set for the rest of your life? Too bad, honey. Too bad. It's my song. I wrote it. I have evidence of it because I have all of the lyrics and the original ones and the original recording right here on my hard drives. But that's the funny thing, Willie Nelson. Do you know what happened? My picture with Elvis Jr., do you know who he is? Elvis Presley Jr. is supposedly the one and only son that Lisa neglects and refuses to admit in the general public that it's her brother. Is it or is it not? If it's not, he should be sued and shut down. If it is, then Lisa and the rest of the family of Elvis should openly admit it. Okay? My personal opinion, don't neglect the child. If it's really Elvis's, then say it. Okay? But we have the attention on the grandchildren. Now, here's the thing. Check this out. And that's okay. It's understood, right? Because in America, we should think that because the king was the king, so's the rest of his bloodline. Not true. The king was made up. Not necessarily true. Okay? He didn't write all of his songs, did he? No, he didn't. He had a lot of people helping him. And we don't know if all the recordings were really Elvis. Now, here's the thing, and it's okay to let the imagination go. Here's my question. Willie Nelson, what do you think about my story when you hear little tidbits? You know it got to you. Tough business, isn't it? What do you think of that Stephen C. Johnson up in Derby, New York? Do you think he really does have access to via satellite invading people's privacy and tampering with their thoughts? This would be interesting to find out your opinion on this. You see, when I gave my promotional CD to Jim Femino, he doesn't like when you say that. It's Femino, is it? I call him Femino. I learned a lot from him, and I'm very grateful for our conversation. I don't hold him accountable for anything. I got my $50 worth, though, I'll tell you that. When I met Bret Michaels, it often wondered me why in the world he didn't call me. Busy man, I guess. I found out that Bret Michaels was using my ideas of things that I did in the past, right, in my live performances and stuff, and things I talked about in the privacy of my home. I found out he was using them with people like Miley Cyrus. I did not fully investigate just yet, okay? What am I getting at? What I'm getting at is my music years ago used to sound a combination and was influenced by Toby Keith, Elvis Presley, Bret Michaels, and people like Montgomery Gentry. When I was out here in Vandalia on a porch in 2010, was it? Going through some of the most depressant times of my life, a stranger walked up on the sidewalk out of nowhere. And he also let me know what? About Montgomery Gentry. And yes, was it Toby Keith? I shared it in my other stories. No, I'm not going to share the details now because I'm going to keep things moving. What I'm saying is messengers have been coming to me, Willie Nelson. And I'm relating this back to understanding that I have been being electronically harassed, and I'm convinced that very talented songwriters, privacies get invaded, things get stolen. You see that Elvis Jr. picture? I was getting ready to talk about a picture with me and Elvis Jr. while I'm holding the Ragtop Cadillac promotional CD had been removed from all of my hard drives and all of the social network pages it was posted on, which means there is technology that can literally wipe out people's hard drives. Isn't there, Willie Nelson? When people want things in the music business really bad and they don't want to do things legit, they'll be very criminal. They will steal things from people and they will go to corrupted measures. For instance, Willie Nelson, my birth certificate was taken from my house in Huber Heights and later returned here at my new residence that I've been staying at for the last 4 years, a couple years later. My legal document that stated that I had a GRS procedure in Cleveland Urology, February 11th, 2011, a copy of that letter was taken by the person I was living with. While I was living here in my new apartment since 2014, I realized several of my driver's license pertaining to Todd Michael Arndt, Todd Michael, and yes, Tracilyn Michael with male genders were all missing. Which means it seems to me that people in the music industry have been trying to steal my identity. While I was downtown in Fountain Square, I met face-to-face Bon Jovi. I also met on another day in Fountain Square Chris Christopherson. My question to you, Willie Nelson, is This is about the same time, Chris Christopherson, this was about the same time somebody in a suit and tie mentioned to me in an email that I would probably never be nothing more and best fit as that Poco guy of that supposed person that may have had a small mental illness and he just played his guitar and sang his songs at people's houses. Is that it? And you sang his song. People like the father of rock and roll that appeared to have a mental illness, Willie Nelson, do you think they were suffering from electronic harassment by people like Elvis Enterprise who wants the All Right Mama song, but they don't want to be good to the person and honor them for who wrote the song? So their goal is to torment them and drive them crazy and keep them away in order to protect what it is, their interest, whatever that is. I think so. That's what I really think, because it's what I'm witnessing as I'm going through day-to-day life. And as I continue to talk about this, it makes me laugh, because Willie Nelson, it appears to me that these people literally were trying to get me to kill myself. It's all on record at my freaking psychologist. I was here at the hospital. That's what I just shared the other day. The person kicked me out when I told them that I'm literally having people play with my thoughts. Hey, Willie Nelson, 2 doors down from my apartment, I found out that somebody just recently died. Not only did I find out that there's people walking around in our apartment building talking to themselves. Several of them during the same time I first started getting electronically harassed. Not only that, there was somebody else who died upstairs. More so or not, there's a lot of people that end up dying in low income, especially as they mature elderly. And what I'm convinced, after hearing stories that I'm going to share with bedbugs, that's what happens here in Dayton when a laser is targeting somebody's brain. It sends off these vibrations. Does it send off the senses of smell? What draws them but the bedbugs are drawn to the heads of the human subjects that are being targeted. Therefore, they make a nest in the bedding. And they will nibble on you at nighttime because they live off of blood. What do you think of that, Willie? Do you think our government? Do you think people behind the government? Do you think people in other countries have access to stuff like this? Do you think people in the music and entertainment industry do? If you knew it, would you not be a coward and share it with the American people so that they could best be prepared for what is happening to Americans? Is it true that in Alex Jones mode, which by the way I realized through my electronic harassment when I was in Huber Heights a couple years ago, was you being used as a lead in Alex Jones' conversations when it came to the Illuminati? What I mean by that, when I was being targeted in the brain, when I was watching the video and I saw you gracefully move over behind him, it was a sign to me to pay attention, because just like I was going down in here at the Oregon District to the local bar and I saw a picture of you hung in there, this is the psychological stuff that they try to do to people they are trying to mislead. In other words, they target the brain, they put you back with names and faces of people like Willie Nelson, and they're put photographs as psychological guidelines, meaning they're leading you and they try to give you, what do they call, like a spiritual encounter that's false, and it's an illusion that you're having some kind of spiritual high, which is what some people in the music industry would describe it as. It's like a spiritual high, and it's not real. It's artificial. It's people who use psychological mind thought tampering where they try to control you to get you to do their agenda. Right, Willie Nelson? You know it. I was really happy to meet everybody in 2010 when I learned how corrupted Steven was, and I realized that he's pretty close to Bon Jovi. And I heard all the things about Bon Jovi when I was an escort. And not to mention the satanic attack on me when I was an escort. The bloodbath I received. And then meeting everybody and having a near-death experience when I was in Las Vegas. Somebody lacing the marijuana. Why do you think they were trying to eliminate me, Willie Nelson? Why do you think people would want to harm Tracilyn, who's very kind? Do you think it's because she has something of monetary value? You think that's what it is? Maybe I'm a heck of a songwriter and other people in the music industry who are on adrenaline rush and they want to be on top of the game. They know they have the songs, they don't want to, what? Be kind and give what belongs to the actual songwriter, right? That's what happens. Greed. Because my songs, we all know the kind of money it could rake in. You don't think I know these things, but I know it. That album alone is millions. Not to mention live shows. But we don't want the general public to know this because then they might be misled to do things for the wrong reasons. Right, John Bon Jovi? We don't want that to happen. And we want to make sure you have plenty of radio time. Right? And if Tracilyn's music is on the radio, oh, one person? No, think about it if it's 20 or 30 other people. Then Bon Jovi's song might not be on the radio anymore and people might hear new music and fall in love with that and not want to listen to Willie Nelson. Why is that? Because we have over 300 million people in America and it's not fair that only a handful or two of people get put on the radio, especially when there's a crisis of people being homeless. And a lot of people are what? Artists that are homeless. And why is that? Do they get misled through psychological what? Using social media pages and psychology by tampering with their thought process via satellite, laser, whatever it is, electronic. Look it up. It's real. I'm not crazy. More and more people are realizing it, that different people get tampered for different reasons. If anytime you're a voice in any situation, you're already being targeted. Why is that? Because you're not conforming to what it is that they desire, which is pretty much a very mundane, dull, boring, what kind of existence would it be for you? So whenever somebody starts to rise up singing, meaning not rise up like people think, you start singing, you start being a voice, you start drawing an attention to you, they're going to be drawn to you in order to hopefully shut you down. Does that upset you that I used your name, Willie? Been around for a long time. I don't want to hear your songs on the radio. I used to be cool with it until I was targeted. Do you think I mind if Tim McGraw's on the radio? No, I don't. I don't mind. I didn't mind until I found out that I was a targeted individual. And the reasoning is because, see that album over there? And the songs that I work on and I have coming up? Because I'm a great songwriter. Hey, you snooty noses. Why wouldn't somebody in the recording arts sing one of my songs so I could collect a royalty check? I could write more songs. I didn't look at it like you guys look at it, evidently. I don't see myself as a threat. I thought I would be a contribution. Unfortunately, it's not perceived that way. And once you start becoming targeted, you realize you don't want to hear Tim McGraw on the radio anymore, and you know something's suspicious. Why should those select few people that collect royalties off that song, not to mention it's conditioning the masses so that they go to his concerts, okay? Whoever you are, Toby Keith, same thing. None of you are any more special than anyone else that can write or sing and play guitar, even a little bit. And not one of you look any better than anyone else in a pair of jeans or a hat. Here we go. We're going to move on with this. I was hoping that this would be pretty quick. I got a lot more things going on with this social media page, and I'm going to show you right now. As I go on to my YouTube, I want to point something out that I realized. Willie Nelson, I wonder what happens here. What do you think happens to my profile pages? Check this out. You see the view counts on my Tracilyn Crazy Life 2018? There's 50 views. Okay, that's on the official YouTube site. Can I tell you something? That despite this one, I had other YouTube videos that I uploaded that really meant something to me. And I literally saw that view count, like these view counts here. I literally saw the view count when I was at Huber Heights go up like a speedometer. You see, this video right here that I'm getting ready to show you right now, this is one of my favorite artistic videos that I put together. It has the soundtrack to my music from years ago. downloaded it originally, and I have the publishing date on it. Went up like a speedometer. Now, what was causing that? Look at that sweet ass. See, I'm not just into doing music. As a transsexual female, I love all forms of entertainment. All forms of entertainment. In other words, I love life, and I am all things. I don't believe in categories. And one thing I get sick of is outlaw people, as they call them outlaws. What's a real outlaw today there, Willie? Is it people who drink whiskey? You know, Kid Rock, is that what it is? People who drink whiskey? People who smoke weed? Is that it? Let me tell you something. Or is it people who can't conform to society's idea of life in general because it's not realistic? It's not real. It's not in alignment with the Holy Bible of freedom of truth. And that is to live, love, and let live and love. Which means not anything that is of harm and death upon others or any other life form. It's literally to live in harmony. With that being said, when you start speaking up and you acknowledge things like the food, remember Farm Aid there, Willie Nelson? See, that's when you were cool, right? Because you were doing something with cause. What do you think happened to Willie Nelson and all the boys in rock and roll and stuff once they started doing the Farm Aid? Do you think eventually you were targeted mentally? You think you started to realize that people are watching you a little bit closer than you care to? And that you better just conform to and just make it about the music? Did they tell you, Willie, just keep it about the music? And they gave you signs that you know, keep it about the music. Well, what if somebody like me doesn't want to just keep it about the music? What if I want to keep it about life and my love for it and Jesus Christ? Hey, Willie Nelson, do people who speak loud about Jesus Christ and their love and praise God with their mouth, do you think they get targeted? And why would they? Do you think they're Satanists? People who do not like people who love Jesus Christ and talk about it, especially if they have a butt like that and are afraid to show you? Imagine that coming to your front door, sharing the good news that in Jesus Christ I am free. Especially if they're singing a song, thank you for washing me clean and I am thankful that I met you. Hey Willie, supposedly I had a penis and I was supposed to grow up and be a man like Toby Keith. That's why my music sounds the way it does in this video. I was supposed to be a tough person, maybe country, right? Because I was in my 30s at that time. And we're moving forward. Well, guess what I found out in the Holy Bible? That's all a bunch of BS. And I'm a very femme spirit. In Indian culture, some of them had 2 spirits or many spirits. What do you think of that? You probably already knew that. But here's the thing. Recording artists, especially those who sing publicly and stuff, or put content out there, probably shouldn't talk about it, right, Willie Nelson? Because you will be targeted whenever you speak about life's possibility of truth. Is that it? Going up like a speedometer, Willie? Like a speedometer? Yes. And I knew right there and then that YouTube is a fraud. Hey, Willie Nelson, when I look at one of your videos, would you please tell the American people as to whether or not it's real? This only has 41 views on it right now because I just put it there, and you will find out in my video that I'm making here, YouTube keeps taking this video down. I think, hey Willie Nelson, I think it's Stephen C. Johnson who takes it down. I think YouTube gave access to a short, pudgy man in Derby, New York, that he can play with my view counts, he can hide my videos, and he can take my content down. In other words, he can cyber bully me and play psychological mental games with me. What do you think of that? Is that your buddy? Do you think he would do that to me? Guess it depends what he had in mind. See, I'm not like that girl who supposedly, she was speaking about vegan and stuff, she ended up going to YouTube, was it? And going psychopathic? Did she end up wanting to harm somebody? And then she ended up hurting herself, killing herself or something? See, I'm not like that, Willie Nelson. And I'm also not like your Poco friend, okay? I'm very intelligent. In fact, I'm super intelligent. That's not the reason why I have challenges. It's because I am intelligent and I realize that we have to live a life of truth, which means I have to be true to Tracilyn, and instead of being like Toby Keith and singing like he did, I look like that and I sing like I do. In a very happy spirit, by the way. But people in the industry, they try to make people like myself go crazy about whether or not I should eat meat, be a vegan, trying to scare you with all the chemicals that are in the food. In other words, they try to get you to self-harm yourself. I met this girl when I was at Lancaster County Bible Church. She walked up to me at the front door of the service after the service, and she said, do you know who God is? And she sounded like a little tiny kid, and I said, do I know who God is? I think I know somebody else who's better off to answer that. I walked over to the pastor, David Ashcraft, and I said, she walked up to me and she asked me if I knew who God was. We don't want to carry on that conversation, but here's the thing. He left me know to be very careful because she had been kicked out of several churches. Supposedly she was a troublemaker, David. But I'm here to tell you, I don't think so. I'm convinced she was electronically harassed. She wasn't possessed by Satan. In fact, in many times throughout history, people would probably declare she is possessed by Satan. The truth of the matter is, most likely not. Most likely, people have the electronic means to get into people's heads and tamper with their thoughts and get them to do all kinds of crazy things. And they torment them. And what they do with television is while you're watching television, maybe listening to a Willie Nelson song, any one of the sad ones. And while somebody's listening to it, maybe everybody on the radio, whoever it is, when people are listening to the radio, there's an automatic beam that's going there and it's kind of freezing your mind into a lockdown of oppression, anything that's oppressive thoughts, depressive thoughts. Or in order to pack arenas, they send out electronic signals to draw people to those concerts. Okay, not everybody falls for it. I didn't fall for the program. I announced that a couple years ago. It's almost like there was a program that has been trying to oppress people. I see more and more depressed people. I can't believe it. More and more aggressively angry people. And what do you think's causing that? It's like it's a computer software program that's coming down on the human race and it's trying to oppress them. I'm convinced, Willie, that people technically would live to be hundreds of years old. But the early transitional state is what takes effect because of the electronic, whatever it is, harassment, if that's what you want to call it. It is to oppress the mind, and it causes all kinds of issues as a person is going through their life. It makes them depressed. It can make them irritated or locked in a way of thinking that is not in alignment with truly who they are. It can make you think artificial thoughts, an artificial view of life. I could be right, I could be wrong. In other words, I'm convinced that the Bible is true and that there are Satanists. And the Satanists use people in the music industry, whoever they are. In fact, the people came up to me while I was on the street and said, it's not what you think. In other words, the entertainment industry is not used for what I think, but it is used to dominantly control and manipulate the masses' way of thinking. And therefore, they don't want to keep using new people. It takes years to break in people, period. And guess what? That becomes their family. Hey, Willie Nelson, what do you think of my Ragtop Cadillac song? Why do you think the phone never rang for me to have a publishing deal or for, hey, Tracilyn, we need to get that song recorded and airtime? Why do you think that is? When a person has a hit song, why isn't the phone ringing? You think it's because I don't have the proper education? You think I should join college classes? Think I should go back to high school instead of having a GED and get a diploma? I read your book there, Willie. Learned a lot from it. Helped me during a very weak time mentally. I've overcome that now, and I overcame it with a lot of stress and frustration when I realized my privacy was being invaded. Now, meanwhile, I also realized that my social media pages, like YouTube, for instance, here at the subscribe, when I was on the street busking and I did my 50-song project, I realized that it was like 28,000 people that were subscribed to my channel. I'm convinced that it was a lot of people in the music and entertainment industry, and they were using a lot of my ideas. When I released Happy, I wrote Happy in 1985. I tried co-writing it that year, and then I went back to my original writing for various reasons. As well, when I came out here in 2010, I rewrote Happy yet again. By that time, I realized that people might be invading my privacy because all kinds of weird stuff is happening to me since I've been out here in Ohio. When I went to release Happy for the first song in my diaper, it was aimed at entertainment for use, for children, for babies. I have a playful spirit. Not everybody in show business will put on a diaper, will they, Miley? Hey, Miley Cyrus. Not too many people will put on a diaper in show business and sing. I wanted to do something very unique. I was a BDSM adult entertainer, Miley. I wasn't disabled in a psychological means of not being able to function. Depression and bipolar is totally different. I'm still very superiorly intelligent. In fact, that's where some of my mental depression and bipolar personality disorder comes in hand, because I know a lot. And I didn't appreciate when I first released Happy. I never heard a song called Happy until what? All of a sudden, that one guy, that funk guy, right? Happy. Whoa, where did that come from? In other words, people in the music industry know what they can take from people in accordance to the laws of the land, and they want to get a jump start, a head start. So they invade people's privacy, and as they're coming up, when they find a great songwriter, Willie Nelson, and they invade their privacy, they know exactly what they can use and what's copyrighted and what is not copyrightable, right, Willie Nelson? That's where all the great ideas come from. The up and coming, supposedly, or people who are clever. And then, when they start to talk and share their life story, they don't like that too much, do they, Willie? And what ends up happening then is they target them, and they try to deter them, and try to cause all kinds of problems in their lives, separation, to get them alone, like out in Las Vegas, and then they try to lace drugs or whatever it is that they can do to try to kill them, don't they? Yes, they do. You're right. Very interesting. And Miley, when I was out in Las Vegas, I saw you when I was at my favorite pizza place down on the Las Vegas Strip. When I was standing there watching on television, I saw you dancing in your diaper. I realized that a lot of what you're doing in your career since 2012 was kind of like a replication of things that I was doing. How does it feel to have other people in the industry use Tracilyn as a resource to make Miley Cyrus's career happen? Do you have any genuine or original ideas yourself, Miley? Does your father? Can you write, record your own music? Do you have any clever ideas yourself? I'm just curious. By the way, also in 2012, Miley, it was acknowledged for a long time that I was an outreach for the transsexual female community specifically. Once I started doing that in the music industry, especially in speaking and sharing my life story, I realized more so or not, more and more people in the mainstream industry who were sending signals or letting me know that it's probably not best that I do that. The funny thing is guess what? I realized that Miley Cyrus and whoever else in New York was putting something, and congratulations, for the transsexual female community, or for the transsexual community. LGBT, is it? Isn't that wonderful, Miley, that you were doing that? What inspired you to do that? Do you have any creative ideas, or do you do anything with a pure heart? I don't know if you do or not. That's why the shirt was burned in my backyard at Huber Heights, the Miley Cyrus shirt that I used to wear. Not because I was a fan of yours. However, I did like your acting abilities years ago. Was it? On which television show was it, Miley? But the fact that I realized, and it was obvious with my Nebraska video, that it was obvious with the diaper, and it was obvious with other things that I was doing, that you were using my ideas somehow to make your career happen.